Welcome to Windows on the World, another live broadcast. This is a special on the Joe Cox murder and the trial of Thomas Mair. We've got a special show coming up this Sunday. This is a little teaser for it. And just before we talk to Nick Colostrum and Helen Turner, I just want to give some information here. The media campaign around the death of Labour MP Joe Cox has been a PR assault on the minds of the public. The linking of the now convicted Thomas Mair to just about every politically incorrect organisation has been publicised relentlessly since the killing of the MP in Birstall in her constituency of Batley and Spen on 16th of the 6th, 16. The trial of Thomas Mair leaves more questions than answers about this murder, and the publicity and statements used to foster hatred against Brexit voters is just really police state propaganda. We've seen a terrible propagandising going on, and this murder has been used politically in a very despicable way, in my opinion. The whole story has contradictions and questions which any critical thinker should really be looking into. Our forthcoming show at windowsontheworld.net this Sunday will go into more depth on the death of Joe Cox and the Thomas Mair trial. So welcome, Helen and Nick.
Thank you.
So we've been into quite some depth about this. The short series footage was shown. Can you go into that, Helen, please?
The original footage of
the footage that was shown of Thomas Mair, or allegedly of Thomas Mair, in the town centre before the murder.
The police released a video, and it was well, where I saw it was in the Huddersfield Examiner, and I examined that video carefully. The video showed Thomas Mair to be almost 100 metres away from the library, around the place.
Now we're talking about the timestamp here on the video.
Yes, on the video that was
Yes.
used in the prosecution, and which somehow the defence didn't notice that he actually couldn't have been there.
Well, that is very interesting, because a good defence lawyer really made an issue of that and taken the video on that.
Yes.
Yeah, I must say that in the court there's quite a bit of CCTV that showed, which we're not privy to at the moment, but these bits Helen has shown, are the few which have got stamps on them.
Yeah.
So they show where he woke up and his journey to and from this library at that time. This is what you're looking at.
Yes, and it seemed to be mixed in with other clips of him, or other stills of him, which probably weren't the same day. They don't appear to be the same day because of the weather that they show. There's a kind of one it seems foggy. It may just be bad photography,
But in all cases he looks perfectly calm, doesn't he?
he looks
He's
perfectly
perfectly
calm. He's just walking
strolling
home.
along,
He's
just strolling
walking
along.
home.
He's not spattered with blood
No.
all over the place, as you would be if you just stabbed an MP 15 times.
He
and
probably doesn't
shot
know
him to
that anything's
bits.
going on at the library.
You know,
You know.
and
Because
you
the
see
car
a guy.
has gone past. The car with Joe Cox in has gone up the hill,
Yeah.
and he's walking down the way.
Well, none of those pictures, but there's two stills, I think,
Yeah.
that they show in that sequence of the CCTV that probably could be used to identify him, but the rest couldn't, because they're too far away. They could be
It's the
anybody.
police who identify him,
Yes.
and they used that in their case.
Yes.
So,
I must say, the one or two Mark refers to do not show a person particularly similar to the one authentic picture we've got of that. No, or actually there is an earlier one with his ID card Helen's found, which also looks like the same person, but the main one picture everybody's seen does not look overwhelmingly like the fellow on this CCTV we're shown. It looks like the doubles here and actors is the usual story.
the gardener picture with the big red gloves. And
That was
the
shown very
ID
early on,
card,
wasn't it?
Very
Yeah,
early, and that
yeah.
was all we saw.
Mm.
There must be people with other photos of him, surely. But the ID card from the library, again, show this gentle face. It's not the same sharp face that we see after the
So
arrest.
now coming up to what happened outside the library, there's more anomalies here because of the eyewitnesses, isn't there? Can we go into that for a bit?
Well, they're all different, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yes, there's so many different accounts. It's confusing, really, but there are plenty of people who didn't hear shots. They didn't hear anything shouted, sort of right-wing slogans.
Well, this was the big thing, wasn't it? Britain first, or put Britain first. Now, there was a little bit of confusion as to whether he said Britain first or we should put Britain first. It was reported quite differently, but generally the papers were saying Britain First as though it referred to this organisation called Britain First, and they also tried to tie him to that organisation with a very badly photoshopped image
Yes.
early on.
Yes, that was it.
So that really was in a way a good time to start discrediting the story. People should have asked questions at that point, really.
And
Yeah.
Britain First came forward and said
Yeah.
he's nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You asked about the different witnesses to what
Yeah.
happened. Let me cite two who were in the court and testified on oath. They said, oh yes, we were both in a car with Joe Cox, this Vauxhall Astra, and you get out at 12:52, and one of them described how this deadly killer guy pulled out his arm like that, holding this gun, with the MP right in front of him, and shot her in the face. And then she fell over backwards onto the ground. Now, if that happens, I'd have thought you'd be fairly dead, or else have your head blown apart, or something like that, with a rifle shotgun. So the next bit of testimony has Joe Cox speaking to her assistant, Aswad. And she says, oh, you people, you get away, go away, save yourself. Just let him harm me, and not you. Now that's a crappy bit of dialogue, and you wouldn't speak like that, you wouldn't speak at all if you just had your head blown off with a gun. Then the other testimony came from this Aswad lady, who was Joe Cox's assistant. She said she was the car driver, so she gets out, and she's supposed to be cradling Joe Cox's body in her arms. And she has a bit of dialogue. She says to the deadly, wicked killer, oh, please leave Joe Cox alone because she's got some children. Consider her children and leave her alone. Which, again, I don't think that's a very credible thing. And if somebody, the narrative is, this guy shoots her and then gets out dagger and starts stabbing her. Now, if that were happening, you wouldn't be cradling him, you wouldn't be on the ground cradling Joe Cox in your arms. So that is like totally reminiscent of the whole Drumilly Rigby story, where you got a guy supposed to have his head blown off, and then you got an Angela Woolwich just cradling him in her arms. And it reminded me of that, as if just sort of repeated the narrative. So you've got witnesses that in court sound very convincing, but actually, you know, when you walk away, hang on, that couldn't happen, that doesn't make sense, you know.
Yeah, there was also the guy who had the cafe there, I think, who put the sign up in the windows saying that nobody shouted Britain First.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And that sounds fairly authentic to me.
Yeah, and there was another guy there called Rothwell who seemed to be the main witness that the press were interviewing, and he kept insisting that he did say Britain First.
Yes.
Well, they produced loads of witnesses.
Just for the first day.
Two came out of the library, two came from the cafe over the road, two got out of the car. The more witnesses you produce, the more of a crowd you got standing around this guy, this little, frail little guy, he's not big and strong, with his dagger and his gun, and how come none of them do anything? Why don't any of them do anything to stop him killing this MP, and why don't any of them take a photo? So the more witnesses the court invokes and claims were around there, the more impossible their own story becomes. Don't forget, not just they do nothing while he's allegedly hacking out a bit, but they just let him then stroll off down the road. Oh, fancy that.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Yeah, he wanders off down the road. And the one witness I remember in court, they said, well, how come none of you can do anything? He said, oh, we were all in a shock, you know. Shock. Oh, you don't expect this to happen in Bristol. Yeah, we were all a bit shocked.
Yes.
Well, one person can be shocked, but if there's about 7 of you standing all around, you'd thought they'd have, gumption to do
And
something.
with Bernard Kenny having a go on the
And
way,
with
I
Bernard,
think
yeah.
somebody else
Yeah.
will come to
Yeah, it does seem very unlikely. Let's go into the footage now of the arrest, because there's some anomalies there as well, isn't there?
Yes. And the
Well,
arrest.
perhaps if I could just one further comment. Notice nobody clarifies at court where she dies. Does she go to hospital? She dies at 1:48. That seems to be about the one only thing everyone can agree on. But not is that in the Leeds General Infirmary, or is it on the pavement next in front of the library? They don't agree at all. You can't get any coherent story of was she put on a stretcher and lifted into the ambulance? That's what they have to do if they're taken to hospital. And can you believe that happens without any photographs at all?
There were reports of an air ambulance as well, weren't there?
Yeah, there were.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Reports of an air ambulance, helicopter, that totally failed by the time of the court case. It was gone, right? So instead, you've got BBC. That was the only helicopter that was
Yeah,
really
that was
there.
there nice and fast, yeah.
Yeah.
There was the report also that a post-mortem was done that afternoon before the body was identified, because her sister went in the evening. So that
No, doesn't
normally
seem
before
normal at
anyone
all.
can give permission for a post-mortem, the body has to have been identified.
That's the point, yeah, right.
So just moving on to now the arrest, and that footage is very, very strange. It looks as though he's been injured on that footage, and it
Badly
also
injured,
looks
yes.
as though he's got a broken ankle.
Mhm.
And we cut to the bit where he's in the road. Basically, we've got this shot which is taken by some witness that the witness has never been produced.
No,
So the person
No,
behind the
no.
camera has never been produced, which is
No.
very similar, as you were saying, to the Lee Rigby thing, when you've got the guy in the road with a machete, and there's some unnamed person in front of a guy who's meant to have cut somebody's head off, who's filming him
yes.
Yeah,
in the middle of the road.
yeah, and you're not
So,
told,
so you've got this guy who's just cut someone's head off, saying, "I'll get my iPhone out and do a quick interview with him."
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it is a bit
yeah.
ridiculous, but this is slightly different because it's somebody upstairs. But that witness has never been called.
No,
No.
We don't know who shot that footage,
no.
and really, if we had a proper media, they would have found out who that person was and interviewed them on the
Yes.
news, wouldn't
Yeah,
they?
yeah, right, yeah.
Because what happens is we get this footage and it cuts to the point where he's already in the road. We don't see the bit before that,
No.
do we?
And within half a minute, you've got about 5 yellow police cars turn up, which seems rather quick, doesn't it?
Yes.
Was it with
Oh,
that?
they come
Yeah.
up in a fleet, really,
Yeah.
don't
Come
they?
a fleet,
There's
yeah.
one little one there.
Yeah.
That's supposed to.
And there's an
that was
unmarked,
already
there's an
started
unmarked
on.
police
Yeah.
car as well, and about 3 to 4 others. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
suppose those two policemen in that little car are the ones that were called as witnesses.
Yeah, but the court case, I mean, I listened to the police officers testifying who arrested him. They grabbed his arms and they threw him onto the floor, on the pavement in front of him, like that, and made him bleed. And that doesn't fit at all with what we're now seeing in a video where it seems to damage his back and his legs. So it doesn't
Yeah, there's
fit.
no explanation as to how that happened, but also when he's being the picture of the interview in the police station shows no injury to his head at all.
Or back or legs.
Yeah. Well, you can just see the picture of him, but he's got no. If he was bashed to the pavement, there's no mark on his head at all.
No.
So that's not there. Now we've also got the very politicised statements made by Brendan Cox, which we're discussing in the show on Sunday.
Yes.
But to go into that, to wrap up, this has made the whole thing extremely suspicious in the respect that it's being used purely as a propaganda exercise against the British public who voted for Brexit, and they're now being called neo-Nazis and all the rest of it. And we've been told through Parliament now that they've got to tone down what they're doing and what they're saying, how they campaign. Now, this is really getting out of hand. So we've got these two who were basically groomed as global leaders. They're both change agents for global governments, very much part of Blairite Tory one world governance under the UN and IMF. And they're both involved in basically destroying national sovereignty for the benefit of a one world order. And this is something that you won't hear in the national press, because obviously what they're doing is they're creating two sides now. And with this, it's going to be very similar to the George Bush's narrative of you're either with us or you're with the terrorists. And what they're doing is they're trying to say that people who want sovereignty or they have a national interest in their own country are terrorists. And that's something we have to fight against. We're going to do a whole show on this on Sunday, 9 p.m. GMT, windowsontheworld.net. We've gone into a lot of depth here, more depth than anybody has done so far, and certainly a lot more than you'll find in the mainstream media. So we'll see you on Sunday, 9 p.m. GMT.